Alright guys, so I'm back here at the fifth wheel. We are about to hitch up and take off. We're already backed up, lined up with the Goosebox directly over the ball. Now what I do not know is if I need to use my shorter Reese ball or if I can continue to use the taller B&W ball. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the Reese ball sticks up about 1.5 inches off of the bed, whereas the B&W ball sticks up about 2.5 inches, so it's about 1 inch higher. And with the new Reese Goosebox coming down more, it's gonna make this bed rail clearance much greater, but it might actually make it a little bit too high, which will cause the back of the RV to be a little bit too low. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and drop this down on the ball, pull it out onto level ground, take it for a quick drive, and just kind of see how everything looks. I'll give you a couple different angles so you can see from those angles as well, but we'll see how it works. And if we have to, we'll go to the shorter ball. So now we have the landing gear retracted. We're just going to pull the legs up and we'll be ready to hit the road once we get all of our electrical connections connected. Okay, we got the chains connected and the breakaway cable connected. Now what I'm going to do is check the lights. So one of the ways I check the lights when I'm here alone is I'll put my parking lights on, so it'll turn on all of my clearance lights on the side and the back, and then I'll turn my emergency flashers on, which replicate the turn signals going. So as you can see from back here, turn signals are working, all my clearance lights are working, we're good to go. I have TPMS on the tires. It's not showing any type of low tire warning. We're in good shape. Okay, so there is definitely a little bit of a lean to the back. I'd probably say it's maybe about 2 to 2.5 inches lower in the back than it is the front. It's not dramatic, but there is a little bit of a lean. So if I go with the slightly shorter ball, it will definitely bring the front down a little bit. Right now I have a tremendous gap between the fifth wheel overhang and the truck bed rails, so I don't really have to worry about anything there. Also, the tires that I'm using are definitely high enough load rated to be able to support the extra load that might be transferred to the back, but you do want to try to get as level as possible. And when I go with the lower ball up front, it'll definitely afford me that. But everything looks really good. I have a camera in the bed of the truck looking at the hitch, so we'll be able to kind of see the movement of it while we drive. And this is the new Generation 2 Goosebox that we have in the back. All right guys, so we are now hooked up with the 2nd generation Goosebox, and it's towing really well. I have it connected to the 2 5/16 inch B&W Goose ball. It's the one with the 2-inch height increase over the stock bed height. I'm probably going to have to go to the Reese ball simply because it'll sit a little bit lower and it will close up some of the gap between the bed rails and the overhang, which right now is at about 7.5 inches. Ideally, 6.5 is kind of perfect. 7.5 inches would be great if it wasn't leaning back the fifth wheel slightly. So being able to drop the front just a hair isn't going to be a bad thing, and it will definitely bring up the back a little bit. But it is a pretty breezy day. The winds are shifting anywhere between about 15 and 20 miles an hour. Right now we're kind of going with it, so we have a tailwind at the moment, so it's not a really good representation of a crosswind, but we've been driving around a little bit now and we've hit a pretty good crosswind, and you really can't tell any difference in towing. With a fifth wheel, you're just not going to get sway like you would with a travel trailer. Having the weight resting directly above the axle of the truck versus off of the back receiver of a truck makes a night and day difference in just comfortable towing. It really does not give you any type of sway. You don't have that hinge effect taking place with the trailer and the truck. Instead, if there's any movement, it essentially has to cause your axles to move, which it's not going to do. So the traction of your tires, having the weight directly above the axle, really plays into a much more confident and comfortable towing experience with a fifth wheel. Even though fifth wheels are a little intimidating for some folks, they actually are much more comfortable to tow. You're generally not going to have that stress that you might have when you're towing a travel trailer, especially in heavy winds or when large trucks pass by you. We're going to hop up on the expressway real quick. You hear that diesel exhaust brake kicking in. They really did a great job with the latest diesel exhaust brake that they have on these Super Duties. I honestly still believe the Ram diesel exhaust brake smokes it. It's just amazing how well that new Ram Cummins can stop a heavy trailer. I had that diesel exhaust brake on that regular cab dually that I was driving in Las Vegas, hauling 35,100 pounds, and I didn't even have to touch the brakes. It literally slowed the entire rig down to about 35 miles an hour with just the exhaust brake. My foot completely off of the brake. Of course, with roughly 14,500 pounds behind me here, this truck has no problem doing the same thing. But, you know, if I put 31,000, 32,000 behind this truck, I don't think it would be the same experience that I had with that Ram. That being said, Ford has definitely improved their exhaust brake significantly. So, who's to say what the next generation of it's going to bring? And to give you kind of an idea, let me show you how it works. I'm gonna take my foot off the throttle, just tap the brake a little bit, and then as the truck slows down, I have my foot completely off of the brake, and what you're hearing right now is actually the exhaust brake. And it does a pretty effective job. Okay, we are accelerating to get onto the expressway. We're going to be exiting off here real soon just to head back to the storage facility. Yeah, the trailer connection feels really good. That ball and socket connection definitely is more confidence inspiring than the traditional Kingpin, but I'm not saying a fifth wheel hitch isn't a great hitch. It's just a different type of hitch, and you don't feel any movement at all inside of the jaws because you don't have jaws with a gooseneck connection. But hopefully you can see how the airbag works and how the suspension system in the Goosebox work to help dampen the transfer of the trailer movement to the back of the truck. Some people might call that a reduction in chucking. I didn't expect much of a difference, honestly, between the performance of the Generation 1 and the Generation 2 Goosebox because there aren't tremendous differences in the overall engineering and design. Most of the differences are in terms of how it mounts to the RV to give you a little bit more bed height increase, and the addition of a different type of air valve because the previous generation had a pressure relief valve that if it detected too much pressure, it would kind of bleed it off. And the problem you'd have with that is if you hit a big bump, it may empty some of the air out of your airbag, and the height over your bed would be decreased every time that occurs. So it could lead to a pretty dicey situation if it comes to lowering the overhang a little bit too close to your bed rails. But with the new Hitch, they've gone and removed the actual pressure release valve, which you really didn't need, and put a much more heavy-duty air valve there. But I do like it. Guys, this is a really cool setup. If you didn't get a chance to see the install video, which I did a couple of months ago, I definitely recommend checking that out. I'll put a link in the description of this video to that video. But again, I didn't expect a lot of differences. It feels very similar to the Generation 1. Actually, it feels identical, but the improvements give me the bed height increase that I needed to clear the fifth wheel, so I didn't have to worry about ever making bed rail to overhang contact when I'm going over severe angles or when I'm going into or out of certain types of inclines and declines. All right, so we are docked back in the spot. Everything turned out really well. Guys, I will put a link in the description of this video if you are interested in the 2nd generation Goosebox. I'll also put a link in the video to the first video where we actually did the install for the new Goosebox. Everything worked real well. Everything is really smooth. It feels just like the 1st generation, except it gives you more space between the truck bed rails and the overhang of the 5th wheel, which is really important, especially if you're going out to more scenic areas where the roads may not be perfectly level. Anyways, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.